please turn to page 250 in your box score. Page 250. Now you're saying to yourself, why is the rabbi sending us to the Haftarah? Because normally the Haftarah comes after the Torah reading. But this year, this year we thought we'd drash a little bit. So we kind of combined the Haftarah and the drash part of it. And so this is the story of Hannah. And this is the traditional Haftarah for the first day of Rosh Hashanah. I guess the only day of Rosh Hashanah. And it talks about the miracle birth of Samuel, our prophet. So for the last 21 years, Lori has been chanting this Haftarah, and it's taken on a tremendous amount of meaning for she and I. And we wanted to share some of that meaning with you this morning. And so let me start by saying that it is, as I noted a second ago, understood as a miracle birth story. Okay? It's also famous for the fact that it's the first time that a woman prays in the Tanakh. It's really a revolutionary moment. And like so many other biblical texts, it also may provide for us, and that's what we're going to talk about in a second, an opportunity to look at this text and see something that we hadn't seen before. Maybe even something that wasn't intended by the biblical reader, or rather, the biblical writer, but something in our contemporary eyes that kind of popped up at us. So this is a moment of relationship in this Haftarah, and of course, human relationships are what Rosh Hashanah are all about.
So at the beginning of the Haftarah, we are introduced to a man by the name of Elkanah. And interestingly, his lineage is also given to let the reader know that he's a Levite. He's from a prominent family. We are told that he is married to 2 women, which I guess was pretty normal in that time.
Yes.
Hannah is the first name, followed by his other wife, Peninnah. We are also told that Peninnah has children, while Hannah does not. Each year, the family goes to Shiloh to offer the annual sacrifice of well-being, which is then consumed by the offerer. Elkanah apportions the burnt offering amongst his family, with a special portion given to Hannah, because we are told he loved her most, and she was childless. Hannah was also the victim of cruel taunting by Peninnah for that same reason. So we're going to pick up the story from there, starting with verse 7. V'kein yaseh shana v'shana migdei alota b'veit Adonai kein takisena v'tid v'kei v'lo toko Vayomer lach Elkanah isha Hannah lame tivkei v'lame lo hoko v'lame yera lavavek halo anochi tov lach Me'asara banim. So each year, Hannah refuses to eat her special portion and instead cries out in despair. Now, this just stresses Elkanah greatly. I could see that, right? You would be very distressed.
I'd be distressed.
Yes. He doesn't understand why his offering of a special portion to Hannah, even out of love, isn't enough. Why are you crying? Why don't you eat? Why is your heart so sad? He asks. And then, as if he could fix everything, he says, behold, am I not more devoted to you than 10 sons?
So what's wrong with that response?
You think?
It's heartfelt. It's an honest attempt to relieve Hannah's pain.
Okay. Let me try to explain this. While Elkanah's response might be well-intended, it reflects that he is more concerned with resolving Hannah's distress than really understanding what the fact is or what's even bothering her. We as readers don't even know what is upsetting Hannah so greatly. Is it the lack of the child? Is it Peninnah taunting her? Is it having to schlep to Shiloh every year when she really doesn't feel like it? We don't know. And neither does Elkanah. Why? Because he doesn't allow Hannah the space to even respond to his initial question. Instead, he moves straight to the solution. That in his eyes, his love is equal and devoted to more than 10 sons.
He thinks he's okay, so you're telling me that he thinks he's being consoling, maybe even generous, but he's not addressing the real source of the pain.
You got it.
Okay.
He is not, because he doesn't even know what the source is. He would have been better off paying closer attention to the eknaktah, the trope note that tells the reader to make a brief stop after, why is your heart so sad? Instead, he blows right through the eknaktah and offers a solution to the problem he doesn't even fully understand. He doesn't even know that Hannah wants a solution. Maybe she just wants to be heard.
Well, maybe this text is a reminder of all of us in relationships to not only actively listen, but just wait a second before you offer a solution. Maybe what Hannah needed in that moment was, let's see, Elkanah to advocate for her with Peninnah, or acknowledge his own responsibility for the situation. And yeah, I understand. Neither Elkanah or we who are reading this story several thousand years later actually know what Hannah wanted from Elkanah. Instead, Hannah takes her despair to the one place, because he's obviously not listening, so Hannah takes her despair to the one place that she knows she'll be heard, to the place, HaMakom, the Holy One who hears prayer and supplication. We're going to hear that prayer now, beginning on verse 12.
V'haya ki hirbetah lahit palel lifnei Adonai ve'eli shomer et piha v'hana hi medaberet alibak rak Sefatecha naot v'kola lo ishameya v'yakshebeach eli l'shikora v'yomer elecha eli ad matai tishtakarin hasiri et yenek me'alaik v'tan hana v'tomer Lo Adoni Ishak Kashak Ruach Anoki V'yayin V'shekar Lo Shatiti V'eshpok et nafshi Lifnei Adonai Al titen et amatecha Lifnei bat Bilial, ki merov sehi, bakasi dibarti ad hena, bayan eli, bayomer lakila shalom, belohe Israel, yitain et shelatek, asher sha'alt me'imo.
The high priest of the time, you've heard his name in there, Eli, witnesses Hannah moving her lips in prayer. Although she's not making a sound, she's praying silently from the depth of her heart and her being for a son, right? And she's offering, give that son over to the service of God. But because she's only speaking those prayers in her heart, Eli thinks she's drunk. You heard a couple times in here variations of the word sheker. That's Hebrew for, what's the Yiddish? Shiker. Yeah, okay, that's where it comes from. So you hear that Eli thinks that she's drunk, and he berates her. Hannah, with tremendous courage, responds to Eli, right? Who is, after all, the high priest. And she says this in a wonderful double entendre. She says, I'm pouring out my heart instead of pouring out something else. Eli bids her a farewell, go in peace, God should request, God grant your request. And the problem is, right, that Eli still doesn't know what Hannah was saying. He just sees her and he realizes now he was wrong, but he doesn't hear what Hannah actually wants.
So sound familiar? In a sense, Eli's response is just like Elkanah's. Eli never asked Hannah what she was praying about. And it's a shame, too, because as a high priest, he might have been able to really help her in some ritual way. In fact, Eli doesn't even find out about what's troubling Hannah or what Hannah vowed to God.
Yeah.
He just bids her a farewell in a typical priestly fashion.
Yeah.
I can only imagine, think about this,
Yeah.
2 years from now when she shows up with Samuel, dedicating him to God in Eli's care, what he's going to think.
Yeah, okay. It just shows up like, hey, here's Sam.
Yeah.
He's all yours. It's significant that Eli is viewing Hannah's behavior in the context of his own life experiences. He could not have possibly conceived of a woman who was praying on her own. So he thinks when he sees her lips moving, she must be drunk. Even though later, 1,000 years later in the Talmud, Hannah is credited for praying silently, expressing herself in that way. This isn't within Eli's life experience. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand it. A woman who could be sitting there or praying there or moving her lips can't possibly be anything but drunk. And so he berates her without having tested this assumption. And it's only when Hannah speaks up that Eli understands fully how badly he has treated her and acknowledges his wrongdoing in mischaracterizing her behavior.
So this is really important. The encounter between Eli and Hannah illustrates the importance of not only active listening, but also avoiding making assumptions based on an individual's behavior or appearance. Eli's reaction to Hannah is an example of confirmation bias. That is, he sees Hannah as a woman first. Second, she's silently moving her lips, so she must be drunk. While such assumptions can be misleading, in this case, of someone with, say, tattoos or body piercings, they can be pernicious when it involves gender or race. Stereotyping also deprives us of the opportunity to experience people as they really are. Eli knows that now, maybe, hopefully,
Now, hopefully, yes.
that women can pray. It's not something he was aware of before, so anybody can learn a lesson. So hopefully, he has grown with his encounter with Hannah,
Well, I'll tell you,
because anybody can learn a lesson.
and I'll tell you the neat thing is that I don't know about Eli growing, but Elkanah has grown. Towards the end of the text, the year after Samuel was born, Hannah tells Elkanah, when it's time to go to Shiloh, says, you know what, I'm not taking Samuel. He's too young. And I'm going to wait until he's weaned before I give him over to Eli and the priests in the service of God. And Elkanah replies, do as you think best. When Samuel is eventually weaned and taken to Shiloh, Hannah and Elkanah bring Samuel to Eli together. And together they join in worshiping, the text tells us, before Adonai our God. These lessons of relationship are important ones, and they may not be as evident in this text on the first reading, or maybe even the 21st reading. It took us a while to figure this one out. What makes the Bible so contemporary, even though it's so old, is that the basic subject matter is people and our relationships with one another.
And that doesn't necessarily mean just partners. It can be parents to children. It can be friends. This is for everybody.
And these issues are as alive today, if not more so, than in the times of the Bible. On Rosh Hashanah, the day on which we consider the nature and quality of our own relationships, our ancient prophets, including our female prophets, continue to speak with us. This is the gift of the prophets and the prophetic voice in the Tanakh. And although this is the end of our discussion, it's the end of our discussion, we want to share with you something you may not have thought about before. Because when you do a Haftorah, there's blessings before and after. And we thought that the blessing before particularly contained words of significance for us in this moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvim tovim v'ratzav b'divreichem hanemarim b'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah Avdo, Uvisrael amo, Uvinviei ha'emet v'tzadek. Blessed are you, our God eternal, supreme power of the universe, who called forth noble prophets to speak the truth. Blessed are you, God of eternity, who delights in the Torah, in Moses, God's servant, in Israel, God's people, and in the prophets of truth and right.
The prophets of truth and right. And so let us join in thanking God for the gift of Hannah's story and Hannah's words and Hannah's prayers and Hannah's vow, and of the blessing of being able to gather here this day to study this text together by saying, Amen.
That was loud.
That was loud.